Okay, great. Well, it's 6:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And then I guess we're ready for roll call.
Chairperson Bond.
Present.
Vice Chair Dina Tully.
Present.
Commissioner Boldenwick.
Present.
Commissioner Bowen.
Here.
Commissioner Foley. You're muted. But I'll note that you're here. Commissioner Lester is absent. Commissioner Maharaj will be absent as well.
Present.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting confused with Mardahay. Commissioner Mardahay will be absent. And Commissioner Pomposo.
Present.
Commissioner Ramos be absent. And Commissioner Zelaya. Commissioner Zelaya. I believe that's it, right?
Okay, thank you. Just out of curiosity, I don't see Ursi on in the meeting tonight.
Ursi,
there she is.
yeah, she's here.
Okay. Hi, Ursi. Phew, good. You're on mute, by the way, but I'm glad you're here.
Sorry, Risha. I was here. I was just busy with my paperwork and thought I was on, and I wasn't.
No problem. No problem. Okay. So we're on to agenda review, and I wanted to note that we are moving 2 items. So we're going to move item 9 with the unfinished business about the budget review to after the subcommittees. And then we're also in the subcommittee list, we're going to move the subcommittee fundraising subcommittee up to the first subcommittee that we review. Michael, if you still want to do that, I think that was
Yeah, thank
Cool.
you.
Yep.
We're gonna have a guest, I believe, potentially joining us for that. So that would help.
Yep, no problem.
Thank
Okay, great. Is there anything else I have to do, or just are there any other changes to the agenda?
No other changes from staff.
All right. So I'd like to ask for approval of the minutes from our previous meeting.
I move that the minutes be approved as presented.
Thank you, Lynn. If
I'll
there are no,
second
thank you. If there are no other changes to the minutes, then all those in favor say aye. Do we just do this just all together? Great. Okay. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you very much.
And if
Okay.
you just want to see if anyone's opposed, that would be good.
Sorry, thank you. This is basically my second or third time on this. So anybody opposed to the minutes? Okay. So I'm going to move on to our guests. So we have some citizens joining us tonight, and I was also wondering if there are any other citizens participation. If we have notice of citizens participation, or anyone who's currently here would like to say hello, share your name. You don't have to either. You can just listen in.
And this would be for any items not on the agenda. So we do have the presentation as the next one, which Ursi will introduce when that time comes.
Yes. Okay. Very good. Well, then I believe we can move to the next item. So since we Oh yeah, the next item is the presentation of the award finalists. So for the Abundance Two-Dimensional Art Show, which I just want to say really was a really enjoyable art show, and really appreciated the participation from the artists. And I'll turn it over to Ursi.
Thank you, Risha. Yes, we have a couple of our artists here, but we also have a little bit of an overview presentation of the award-winning art. All of the entries that won. It's a total of 7 entries. So, Erin or Angela, I'm not sure who of you are going to put that on screen. But as you do, I will just speak to each piece in order. The first piece listed is by Judy Kitoriano. It's called Persistence of Chili Farmers in New Mexico. It's the next slide. Judy was going to try to be here. She still might make it. But just to let you know, in our interactions, she expressed her thanks for all the efforts that the commission put in to present this show. The next piece, the next slide, is by artist Karen Mitchell. It's titled Abundance of Love and Joy, My Granddaughter Keoliani, a pastel that won honorable mention. Karen will not be joining us today. The next piece, then next slide, is by artist Audrey Mueller Hartwig, titled Dear Sierra, an acrylic painting that won honorable mention. Audrey was unable to be here today due to conflicting schedule, but she mentioned in her communications that she, well, I'll quote her, "I do appreciate the acknowledgement and sorry that I'm missing the meeting." The next slide is by artist Hep Ho, titled Iguazu Falls, Argentina, a photography piece that won honorable mention. Hep also is on vacation and out of town, unable to be here, but she said, "I am so proud to be a part of this exhibition." This was her message to me in her email exchange. The next slide is by artist Gloria Andreas Newman, titled The Power of the Sea, an acrylic painting that won 3rd place. Our Gloria, I do not believe, is with us today. Then we move on to the next piece by artist Mark Montserrat, titled Holbrook Palmer Stables in Oil on Panel, which won 2nd place. Mark is here with us. And Mark, if you would like to or are able to, do you want to speak to this piece while we have it up?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Last time I tried Zoom, I couldn't get my thing to work. So thank you. Yes, I want to thank you all for letting this show happen and making it happen. It's a wonderful thing. I guess you've done it for a number of years. How many years have you done it?
At least over 20, at least over
Wow.
22, 23. Yes.
And do you have just one a year or a couple?
The commission sponsors 4 annual gallery shows. Of the annual gallery shows, there are 3 adult-oriented shows.
Wonderful, and it's great to see the neighborhood turn out for it, and you had a wonderful food spread. Thank you so much for the award. It's very gratifying to get something. First place went to photographs, so I feel pretty good about that. Is the art shown in this Zoom at all?
Yes, Mark, the virtual exhibit is available. I can send you that link later on.
I just wonder if you were showing it at the meeting here. Is there a picture of the art?
Oh, yeah, there's a picture on right now. Oh, you're dialing from your phone. Okay.
My smartphone, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
okay.
see the picture, but that's fine.
Okay.
Anyway, thanks a lot. Sure appreciated it. I want to give you my thanks.
Thank you so much. Oh, sorry, I just wanted to jump in and say thank you so much, Mark. We really appreciate having your pieces too.
Great to hear from you. Thank you.
And
Shall I leave now?
You're
I'll wait for-
welcome. You're welcome to stay or leave when you wish, Mark. It's your
Okay,
choice.
I'll just hang out for a bit. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the next slide, the final slide actually by artist Nadine Levon, titled Abundance of Bubbles, a digital photography piece, which took first place. And Nadine is also here. And so we'll take the opportunity. Nadine, would you like to say a few words about your piece?
Okay, thank you. I do some street photography, and a lot of street photography is about catching a moment. And I often say that you're lucky. I guess I guess I know what I'm doing, but the luck is an opportunity. And this was a farmer's market, and I just saw this bubble machine and walked around a little bit and found this couple, and on the frame itself, you can see other people. So going back beyond this couple, you see others as well. And it was, to me, a joyous moment. And, thus the title Abundance of Bubbles. And it made me smile, and hopefully other people get that same kind of impression. And it also, the picture could be anywhere, any community, but it gives you a sense of community. And the part after we've gone through it, where we've been so separate for several years, this gives you a feeling, I think, or hope of community. So, I'm very thankful for the amount of effort that your city puts into cultural arts, and what I do for a living. I work with a lot of communities, and a lot of communities don't have that same sense of investing in the cultural arts. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Nadine, for participating. This piece of visual maximalism definitely makes me smile. So, and thank you for the kind words too.
And that actually concludes the slide presentation. Thank you, Nadine and Mark, for joining us. As I said, you're welcome to stay. I don't know if any of our other commissioners have any words. They're clapping for you. So certainly well deserved. And I hope you join us. We do have, we have several things coming up, but with regards to our next adult art show, it will be a Day of the Dead around October. So I hope you're able to join us for that, participate and or just come and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, and have a good meeting. Bye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye. That was lovely. Thank you, Ursi, for leading that. Any other thoughts, or shall we move on? Okay.
And through the chair, if I may, I just want to bring one thing up. I did speak to the guest that is part of item for the fundraising, and she was going to be joining us, but she was running a little bit late at the time. We didn't know we were bumped up for meeting, so we told her no major rush. So I don't know if you want to proceed with the subcommittee in the order it is, or if you want to go back to the unfinished business. So
I guess on that note, if there's no opposition, did she give an indication for when she might be joining?
She was hoping close to 6:30, so I don't think it'll be too much longer. She was driving at the moment, so.
I think on that note, we should go back to the unfinished business, unless Michael, I think you're particularly on point about this, but.
Yeah, no, unfinished business is perfect. I think my intention was to bump up that subcommittee to the top of the subcommittees. So not to impede with the flow of the meeting and unfinished business. Sorry.
Well, thank you for everybody for the flexibility, but I think since our guest isn't here yet, we should just keep the unfinished business at the next item. Is that all right, Angela?
Yes.
Okay.
I am just setting up my screen here and preparing to share it. Okay, can you all see that now? All right, well, I'm back. So This is a continued conversation, and again, as in the prior months where we talked about funding and priorities, I don't expect that the commission has to make any hard and fast decisions today, but hopefully this will get us, the next step closer to kind of deciding how to prioritize funding in our projects. So our two main topics for today's discussion will be to review what could be an appropriate rolling balance for the cultural arts donations account, and then just ongoing discussion about planning and prioritizing our projects. So moving on to the cultural arts donation account. This account, again, as a reminder, is used for scholarships and awards that would not be allowed under the general fund. This is the fund where all of your fundraising dollars are housed, including expenditures for the Jack Drago Scholarship, stipends that go, or honorariums that are paid to artists for the art shows, and just that kind of work. So the commission may use this fund for art acquisition and projects, but staff recommends retaining a rolling balance for scholarships and awards.
And sorry, Angela, can I jump in?
Sure.
Is this also the fund, like if there are expenses like prior to a fundraiser, for instance, is this the same fund that we tap into for that?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So like if we wanted to do catering at a fundraiser, we would tap into this fund.
Yes.
Excellent. And then another question, would it be fair to say that all of those funds in the balance with the encumbrances were originally donations that were kind of the way the donations were collected were that it was going to go towards specifically scholarship or just in general to cultural arts commission activities? Do we have an idea of that, or?
Yeah, let me click on this here to show you. So this is the fundraising or donations account report that's typically included in your packet every month. And so the income from your fundraiser is indicated on line 2 here for fundraising funds under income. And then any specific donations that were designated for the scholarship are listed under scholarship donations. And then likewise, just to review on the expenses side, since you asked about the fundraising event expenses, that would appear under here, line 1, event expenses. So it was very low for your fundraising event. I think it's typically been between $500 to $600 in expenditures towards fundraising, in large part because the commission has been able to get so many items donated to support your special events. But that doesn't necessarily have to limit you to that budget.
Gotcha. And let's just call out that it looks like we spent a little under $550. Like, I don't know if we've called this out before. If we did, I'm just going to call it out again. Looks like we spent a little under $550 for the September fundraising event last year and raised $4,300. That's an incredible return on investment. So yeah, that's very impressive. And I think, any event that is pulling in significantly more money than the expense is great. So, but it just, as we think about really having the right amount of support, I mentioned catering or whatnot, it looks like there's room in that ROI to think about, a little bit more of expenses to take off some of the burden, but we'll get to that anyway. Thank you. This is helpful. Please.
Yes.
Continue. Yeah.
And your questions are related to my next slide here, which is just as the commission considers what should be the rolling balance. I thought I'd just share what the account typically has in it. So just going back to recent years, the average account balance is roughly around $30,000. Some years it's 27 to 31, I think was the range that I saw. But the account has been able to have roughly an even amount of income and expenditures around $5,000 each. I put an asterisk here because it excludes outliers like the $45,000 for Caltrain. And then the scholarship awards have been roughly between $1,500 to $3,000 per year. Amount spent for awards for winning art exhibits, $200 to $225 per exhibit. Just as a reminder, the entry fee for the art exhibits is $5, right, Ursi?
Correct, Angela.
Okay. And then utility box mural program. Prior to COVID, this was an every other year program, but just since it's a part of your base program, the last awards given were $400 per honorarium. And I think the commission awarded 4 awards in the last round that we did that. And then just a final point for your typical expenses, fundraisers have been about $500 to $600 in event expenses, again, largely because of donations. So that's just some food for thought as you consider what could be an appropriate rolling balance. And to help the commission consider the best path forward here, I've prepared a few options to run through. But again, these are just to kind of make the conversation a little more tangible. We don't necessarily have to land on any of these options. So option 1 could be basically to allow no special expenditures and keep the fund only for scholarships and awards. This could be a long-term decision, or it could be a temporary one, given that the commission is still feeling out its fundraising opportunities. This could just be one strategy for now for the commission to consider for what to do with the rolling balance. Option 2 could be to identify a base program reserve. So what I consider your base program would be the things like the Jack Drago Scholarship, the art exhibit, artist awards, honorariums and stipends for the utility box mural program. And so the commission could, so it's basically like your savings account or your rainy day fund. How many years of reserve funding do you want to keep on tap to cover, years when fundraising might be challenged or just very low? So for example, if your average annual expenditures is $5,000 from this account to cover with scholarships and honorariums, then the commission might want to consider 3 years of reserve funding, which would be a rolling balance of $15,000. It doesn't have to be $5,000. It doesn't have to be 3 years. Again, that's just an example for one way to think about what your rolling balance might be. And then,
sorry, you were going to get there. Never mind. Go ahead.
And then option 3 would be to identify an art investment reserve. So this would be if the commission did want to consider using the donations account to invest in art acquisition or art projects that are beyond the scholarships and awards. You could consider establishing a process for moving surplus funding into this reserve account during years when your funds raised exceed the needs of your base program. So the example that I have here is that if the commission raises $7,000 and you end the fiscal year with $5,000 in expenses, then you could move your $2,000 balance to an art investment reserve and then just continue building that moving forward. So those are my top 3 options. I did have a slide here for option 4, which would really be any other suggestions that the commission has. But I'll pause here and see if anyone has any questions about the options or other suggestions or just general thoughts of what direction you are in favor of.
I do have another suggestion, but before I'm too loud of a voice, I want other people to jump in. So do people have questions about the various options or suggestions for another option that Angela hasn't put up?
Well, I guess I have one question, which is more a point of clarification. So I know we had some discussion in the past about that 1% of funds coming in, and was that coming into this fund, and is that part of this, budget, and it just hasn't, come in yet, and that's why it's not really reflected here. But when it does come, will it be reflected here?
Not in this account. There's a separate report, which I will get into a little bit later, that identifies the different pots of money that the commission has. So this one is strictly really related to fundraising and scholarships.
Okay, and so those other funds that are in that other account, are they relegated towards art investment? Because I think one of the questions here that's been presented is whether we would create a surplus fund for art investment, but does that mean that we have other funds allocated towards that already or not?
You do not.
Well, we have general funds that could be allocated towards that.
That are not in this account, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, got it.
Let me see.
So yeah, we'll get into the rest of the budget, but off the top of my head, I think it's something like $30,000 or something that we have in just very general funding, and then a couple of other. We'll get into that part, but it's a very good question. Yeah. So I have no, please, Michael, go ahead.
My thoughts seeing this is that knowing that we have general art funds separate from this, I would like to see us keep an encumbrance balance reserve for the fundraiser, but also not touch this for anything other than the monetary awards or local art grant opportunities, similar to that grant opportunity that's out there. So I don't know if we determine that it needs to either be a resident or at least benefit the residents in some way, or the community, but keep this to be our community art-based fund and not anything to be shaved off or redirected to art investment.
So Michael, I was actually going to go in a similar direction. To build on that, I really like the idea of establishing a rainy day fund so that we have a rainy day reserve. Angela's idea of 3 years sounds very reasonable. And then with the surplus that we have there, two complementary ideas. So one idea is to say, okay, last year, and Sarah, you put an amazing amount of effort into this. Lots of people participated in the fundraiser. We had a spectacular fundraiser. Do we want to, I think we already raised the amount of scholarships that we are doing this year, but do we want to have, like, if we hit a certain surplus in year one, do we then say, okay, that surplus means that the next year we're going to just go all out with scholarships and do, I don't know, 4 scholarships of $2,000 or however many that we can afford, that still keeps our 15,000 reserve, but then we just have like bonanza of scholarships. And then like as a hybrid, we could say, do we also want to Michael's point, have some of the money from this fund be that's not in the reserves and not towards scholarships, but be, yes, for, I was just thinking to set aside for things like, we need to touch up the mural, the utility box murals and whatnot. But I love this idea, Michael, and to build off of it, of actually giving grants, I would suggest to residents, because to really keep it in the community. But then because if we look at the numbers, we have a surplus this year over that 15,000. I think it's like doing the math, it's like 12 or 13,000, something like that. do we kind of do a hybrid of keeping some of that for grants and keeping some of that as maybe we go big in scholarships? Zubin, please. Commissioner Maharaj, sorry.
Is there a difference between the art investment reserve and the rainy day fund, or are we considering these both the same thing?
I understood that it's different, but Angela, do you want to?
Yeah, as I proposed it for the art investment reserve, I was thinking more for art acquisition. Like if you wanted to purchase a sculpture, or I suppose even hire an artist to paint a mural.
Okay. I was wondering because when the idea number 3 on the art investment fund came up, what I was actually, maybe I'm going off this topic a little bit, but I was just wondering, like the rainy day fund, I agree should be there as reserve, again, either scholarships for folks, local community members. I think it would be good for the art investment fund to decide what we want to crystallize. What is it that we would invest in? Like, what are some ideas? Not necessarily that we have to have a specific artist in mind or anything, but would it be a mural? Would it be, a set of paintings? What type of art that would be? So kind of putting some parameters around that and some ideas so that we can talk about that, because I like that solution quite a bit. And that.
So Zubin, that is some of that, like mechanistically, is part of Angela's part 2. So right now, I mean, I can totally hear you. Like if we wanted to go towards an art reserve investment, that we would also want to have a mechanism for thoughtfully investing it. So it sounds like maybe there's and then Sarah, I wanted to kind of come back to you and say if you had any further thoughts, especially based on some of your work on the subcommittee before, in terms of how you would like envision this money that you helped raise to be spent.
Yeah, no, thanks, Risha. Well, I mean, I agree with you and Michael. I think I at least envision this money that we raise for the fundraiser to go towards community things. And so if that means, it's in the form of grant, I think that's a great extension of using these funds and it's in that same spirit of sort of bolstering the community. I think that in terms of investment of art pieces, obviously, I think that's something that we should be invested in, but it makes at least more sense to me for that to come out of the general fund, especially since we don't know that there's going to be a set amount that we would be spending year to year. It's just sort of like on a case by case basis. And those the pricing can vary wildly. So, I mean, there's no real way to sort of, I just don't know if that's like a thing that we could budget out. Also, I think from the perspective of raising funds, one of the largest marketing aspects of it is that we're raising money to put back into the community. And I think it's hard if we, then turn around and use some of that money towards something else, even though it's going still towards the community. I think it's a greater sell, right? When you're doing a scholarship or a grant. But that's just my 2 cents.
Lydia, Peter, do you have any thoughts on this? You're on mute, Lydia.
I have just a kind of a side part to all of this. Isn't there like a city group, Friends of the Park or something like that? Is that true, a citizens group?
Like our Friends of the Parks and Rec.
Yeah, I don't know. I know a lot of cities have citizens group that also do fundraising for the city. And I was wondering how that even got established, and if that we couldn't have at some point a Friends of the Artist or whatever. I know Palo Alto has something like that with their art center. It's primarily to get money, but I wouldn't, I'm just throwing that out as an idea, but how that even becomes established is just have to be people that are really concerned about that or what.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, Peter, because it's the South San Francisco Friends of Parks and Recreation, and that is going to be Michael's special guest tonight.
And the president of Friends of Parks and Rec is actually on with us right now. You may know her as the face of the city manager's office. the front face of it. So Marie Patea is on here. If Marie, do you want to speak to how that got set up? Sorry, you weren't planning on having this conversation.
No, it's
Something
okay. It
we
actually
talked about for a while.
Yeah, Friends actually happened before my time. So I know many of you, I used to take minutes. I was Karen before Karen. So with cultural arts, and so happy that you guys are growing and doing wonderful things. But Friends of Parks and Rec happened before, gosh, what year did we establish? I think I was with the city, but it was shortly, maybe like 2010 or so. And it was kind of Sharon's. She's like, we need a non-for-profit so we can apply for grants, do fundraising. And so Friends has worked together to just support Park and Rec programs. So being a 501c3, we're able to be a pass-through. So if the city collects money, or an organization collects money, and we can then pay out, and then it's a tax-free situation. So it's worked out quite good. But I actually, Carol Matsumoto, because she started out with cultural arts before she went into city council, she's always had a mindset that we need a friends of the arts, but Friends of Parks and Rec kind of, it's one big happy family. So I think it could all work together.
Thank you for that insight. I think.
Oh, go ahead, Michael.
No, among past commissioners, we've had this conversation too, where many have identified the desire or the need for it. To your point, if Friends of Parks and Rec already exists and supports and can be that partner and pass through, that might help us in many ways, at least start to bridge the gaps that we've seen in the past on how do we properly accept these donations, ensure that the folks who give us these donations have that proper documentation for their tax refund, and maybe also improve how we receive money, because I know one of our challenges is not having the modern technology at our events to be able to accept that. And so maybe there's
Michael,
a solution in there. Yeah.
I think it's an incredibly important topic. And would it be all right if we kind of close out at least this part of the budget conversation? And then, Angela, would you be okay if we go to your part two after after the fundraising thing?
Thank you for keeping us on track.
I mean, I know you're kind of like halfway through your presentation. I very much appreciate your organization in splitting it up into the two topics. I really want to at least close out this topic around the donation part of the funds, and then would you be okay if we then came back to the second part after the subcommittee? So split the agenda.
Yes, that's totally fine.
Okay, thank you for your flexibility on this.
I mean, we could also just continue the budget and then come back to the fundraising subcommittee separately, because it really isn't related to this conversation.
Then we'll keep going. I mean, it's not going to be short. The second part of the conversation, I suspect, is not going to be a short conversation either. So I just want to be respectful of your guest time.
Marie, are we okay with your time?
Yep. Okay. All good. Keep going.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you.
And then Ursi, I saw that you had your hand up a moment ago. Did you want to say something?
Sorry, Risha. Yeah, I was just to add a little historical footnote to the Friends. I was involved with the Friends way back in the aughts. So I have a little bit of history with them from a long time ago. But with regards to Peter's item, again, historically, actually a Friends of the Cultural Arts Commission was proposed by several past commissions. We do have some template paperwork at the time that they were proposed, but I think it was viewed more as to get volunteers to support the commission's work. That was the thought, and ultimately it kind of didn't really go anywhere. but that has been considered, and we do have a model for it. So a little bit of history.
So it sounds like that would be another way to raise funds. But if I may focus us back to the and Peter, it's a very interesting idea, obviously worth revisiting. But if I could focus us back to the way that we handle, sort of allocate the donation funds, and I guess we have like a couple of different angles on this. I think we all agree that we're going to want some sort of rainy day fund. It sounds like there's some consensus around that. But there's some options around boosting the scholarship. So the scholarship might be a variable amount each year. There's an option around the art reserved investment, around local resident grants. So Lydia, Lynn, do one of you want to?
Well, I wasn't aware that we had a choice. If we have a fundraiser for scholarships, then we're committed to spend the money that we raised in that event for scholarships, aren't we? I mean, I have never raised money for a certain item and then used it for something else. I thought we were committed to do it that way.
That's a very good point. If we are presenting our fundraising as being specific for scholarship, from a sort of integrity standpoint, we may want to consider sticking to the scholarships.
Ourselves trying to explain why we spent it on something else.
Yeah. Well, typically our marketing, I think it might have changed this year, but our marketing for the fundraising events have been geared primarily towards the Jack Drago scholarships, but it's also mentioned and cultural arts programs generally. I mean, this is also helpful because of the for the art exhibits as well. I mean, it's such a small portion of this overall budget, but it kind of offsets some of those awards. The entry fees also offset the awards, but it could supplement it a little bit if the commission wanted to pad some of that.
I think everybody has a good point, and I agree with everybody. So, but as to I think with Lynn, I think I kind of agree with Lynn, because if we're going to raise it for the scholars, then I think you should go to the scholars. But of course, Angela said it changed a few years back, maybe. So,
well, if the wording was changed, I didn't notice it. I really, that is the only fundraiser that we have. So as of now, we have never raised as much money as we did last year, which I am absolutely grateful for. But I think we should make it clear in the future that to the commission as well as the community, if we're raising money for scholarships in big print and other art commission business, then we better, I want it made very clear that what the money is being raised for. And I think art commission, other event things is a little vague.
I see your hand up again.
Yeah, hi. Just to augment Angela's the comment, because I do the promotions and maintain the webpage and all that. Yes, for the longest time it was listed as the funds raising supports the Jack Drago scholarship primarily and other art programs. It was fairly recently, it was just changed or altered to just specify the scholarship, but it has been for a very long time kind of a wider umbrella to capture primarily the scholarship, but also the potential for other programs.
So on that note, it sounds like part of what we should really decide, or at least start thinking about very seriously, is to think about having, you know, if we want to, for instance, do grant programs, having that align with the marketing that we're doing, obviously. So I would like to make a motion that we that I think Angela's 15,000 is a really nice number as a rainy day fund, that we kind of consider the art donation funds that we have now, that we set aside 15,000 for a rainy day fund, and then we asked the scholarship committee to put forth a proposal for what to do with the surplus over the 15,000, whether that is for, you know, extra exciting scholarships this year, or if they want to add to the rainy day fund, or if they want to have local resident grants. I think those were like the three kind of hearing consensus of ideas, and then we can vote on what to do with that in the next general meeting, if I may task the scholarship fund with that, or the fundraising and scholarship subcommittee. So does anybody have a question about that motion? Basically, to set up that we'll have a rainy day fund, and then have the extra funds to be to have a proposal from our subcommittee for what to do with the funds that are surplus to the 15,000 in rainy day.
Risha, would you mind actually just suggest, as the chair, would you mind suggesting to that fundraising subcommittee what you would like to see, and we'll review that, because as you know, the bandwidth and capacity with our fundraising efforts right now is pretty much at maximum over this next month.
Oh, yes, good point. Okay, well, so maybe we don't have to decide this by next general meeting.
And I mean, and so I also just want to chime in that I remember and recall being part of the conversation of changing it from cultural arts programs just to the scholarship. And the reasoning of doing that was because I myself was confused as to what cultural arts programs were and why we had that disclaimer, when every time we've been out there, we're talking about fundraising for the Youth Arts Scholarship, and that specifically. And so that's where that clarity came from. Now that I'm understanding what those cultural arts programs could be, or what that overflow is, I'm understanding the greater kind of benefit to our community that is still there, and the opportunity to benefit more people. But I do still think we have this issue with the funds that we raised for that last event now were earmarked, to Lynn's point, specifically for scholarship.
Yeah.
Maybe all funds previous years weren't, and were a little more general. So I think being on the generous side, or more conservative side, I would propose that we just keep 20,000 in a reserve, 4 years. Kind of arbitrarily, each of our terms are 4 years. So if you think that there are 4 years of poor fundraising efforts, then we still have enough to keep that pace. And then maybe we look longer term as to what those excess funds could be allocated toward.
Well, Michael, a really good reason, besides your bandwidth, which is up to here, as I've seen in emails, you've done an extraordinary amount of work, just to preview what you'll be reporting on. But just to, I mean, the entire subcommittee, obviously, and your emails specifically, I think it's very valid that the fundraising subcommittee have a little bit more time. And then another reason to look to maybe May or June for your recommendations on what to do with that surplus. And also I think 20,000, and revise the motion in a minute. It sounds reasonable. But what to do with the surplus is that you will hopefully have a very nice surplus coming in after the opera fundraising. So, I mean, to work that into the budget and have Angela be able to update those numbers against that 20,000 of reserve funding, I mean, that'll be hopefully very exciting. So, yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool. So, on that note, I revised my motion that we have that our actions towards this part of the budget to set aside 20,000 as a rainy day fund, as a reserve fund, and then ask the subcommittee when they're ready at an appropriate time in the year to put forward a proposal for what to do with the surplus so that we can really put it to work in the community.
All right, we just need a second to the motion.
I'll second that motion. I'll second that motion. If no one else is going to do it, I'll second it.
And then
do we do a poll? Yeah. Sorry, does Karen?
Yeah, Commissioner Boldenbeck,
Yes.
Commissioner Bowen,
Yes.
Commissioner Foley,
Yes.
Commissioner Lester is absent. Commissioner Maharaj,
Yes.
Commissioner Marta Hayes absent. Commissioner Pomposo,
Yes.
Commissioner Ramos is absent. And so is Commissioner Zelaya.
Okay, sounds like it passes.
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
Thank you all. Well, now that was actually a really great exercise because it helps demonstrate what we want to be more active about in terms of getting clarity around what budgets are available and then really putting the money to use. So Angela, please.
Yes, and a lot of your questions were kind of leading to this next part for planning and prioritizing art projects. I'd like to start by reviewing the Cultural Arts Fund summary. So this is the new report that I presented to all of you at the last meeting. I did change it a little bit. Make this a little bigger. So again, just to review for your information, Table 1 is a summary of your cultural arts donations / fundraising account. This is what we have been talking about in the first part of my presentation. It shows your balance minus these encumbrances as $28,000. And then under Table 2, this is designated for public art. This is developer fees, or sorry, not developer fees, a contribution from a developer that we discovered is another pot of money for the commission. There's $33,500 in this. And you'll notice on the right side column here, these are designated with an asterisk. It's to denote that these are unrestricted funding. So they're not designated for a specific purpose. Table 3 shows your general fund money. This is budgeted per fiscal year and shows again what special projects this fund is allocated towards. There's $10,000 here in public art allocation that's unrestricted from the city's general fund this fiscal year. And then Table 4 just houses the grants. We've expended this grant already for the fiscal year. So that leaves you with an unrestricted funding balance of $72,000 minus if you subtract the fundraising donations account from that, you have about $43,500 in an unrestricted funding balance. So the new part of the report that I added here, and it also shows some good news, I'll make it a little bigger so you can see, is I added Table 5 just to highlight capital projects and funding that is allocated from our capital projects. So I think in past presentations, we've informed you that the capital projects that the city has underway does not have any funding set aside. But thanks to our Deputy Director of Capital Projects, Philip Vitale, he was able to carve out $100,000 for the new aquatic center and designate that money for public art. Some of this, since it wasn't budgeted up front, we just kind of had to see where the cost estimates fell and, you know, like where we could find that money. And so he's been able to commit this $100,000 that could go towards art. And then just going down the list here, I've also listed other projects like Centennial Trail Park, Linden Park, the Orange Memorial Park Sports Field, and the Library Park and Rec Community Center, Oyster Point Park, and then the Caltrain Plaza, in which we decided already to install this Inspire kinetic sculpture. So the only projects with funding, again, as shown on this table, is the pool project, or sorry, pool art. And then I just thought, even though this is an old project, installation to be completed in fall 2024, I wanted to add it to the list because it is an art opportunity and art investment on behalf of the city that we have underway. And the way these projects are sorted, I did do it in terms of opportunity. So during the design phase of the capital projects, that is the most opportune time to build in art because we can plan ahead for footings, or if there's uplighting that's, you know, we want to plan for ahead of time. It's a cost savings to the city if we can plan ahead and build that in as part of the project. It doesn't mean that we can't undertake art opportunities later on. It just would entail more cost if we had to install like footings or electricity later on. So this is the prime time for the pool. Coming up pretty soon is Centennial Trail Park and then Linden Park. These are the top three that are either in design now or will be entering it soon.
And then Angela, on a couple of questions on those. For the aquatic center, have we designated already what art, or is there just 100,000 set aside? And actually, it would be helpful to have the commission subcommittees help to guide that installation.
That we are looking for the commission's feedback on that, and that kind of feeds into what I'm going to get into next, which is just talking about what Risha has suggested about a mechanism for allocating funding.
Before you get there, I have another question, if I may. So on, for instance, the Centennial Trail Park or the Linden Park, where it says none for Centennial Trail Park, does that mean, I mean, we were able to you know, cajole and carve out 100,000 for aquatic center? Do you think there's a possibility of carving out for one of these other two upcoming opportunities? Or is this something where if we want art there, it needs to, like, we need to designate it out of our general fund budget?
I'll jump in for Centennial Way because I was on a call with the designers and project managers for this one today. We're currently about almost $200,000 over budget based on the last estimate. So I think it might be hard pressed to pull that out of the construction budget. We're hoping to use some community development block grants to help support that delta, but that money can only really be used for accessibility improvements and not art. So unfortunately, I think that one's going to be pretty much fully spent with our budget. And Linden, I think there's still a possibility for Linden. And it's also within the half-mile radius of the IQHQ project, should the commission want to use funding there.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Okay, thank you very much. Angela, please continue.
Okay, so, and then just to remind everyone, since Greg mentioned the IQHQ money, at the bottom of this and in gray, because it's still pending, not in hand yet. The commission has $500,000 in a developer contribution, still expected from IQHQ. So,
Angela, I have a quick question on that Caltrain Plaza money. Originally, and this is, I think, just a clarification. I want to make sure that I better understand this. The original RFP that went out, I believe, was $500,000. And was that reduced? And that's why we have an encumbrance of
no, so that was it.
45,000?
That was its own distinct pot of money. This 45,000 was another developer contribution that was specific towards the Caltrain Plaza.
Got it.
So we've just kind of held it as contingency for the larger sculpture project. But
and so lower in your grid, then that $500,000 project for Caltrain is now 464,000. Is that because it came in at less cost than the $500,000 RFP budget?
You know, I honestly can't remember. I'll have to go
Yes,
back to.
It did, because I was on that committee, and that's one of the reasons we picked that too, because for value, it's a better deal. Everybody else was charging $500,000 regardless.
Right.
And these people were, you know, they were pretty cool. So,
is there any reason why we don't have access to the balance between that 464 and 500 for further art at the Caltrain Plaza?
I think my impression is if we're still holding our $45,000, then the balance of that is also being held as contingency.
I was gonna say it's for installation, you know, the footing.
So not to be too picky, but 45 is, well, anyway, I won't get into it. So we might, that 45 might get freed up for more art at Caltrain Plaza, just to.
Correct.
Okay, great. Okay. I'll leave it there.
And I know the question has come up before, like when could the commission have access to that if it wasn't used? And so I don't think that will really be available until the project's completed in fall 2024.
So theoretically, it could be $36,000 plus $45,000 with the $500,000 budget remaining plus our $45,000 encumbrance.
That is the math that I'm hearing, but
I'll have to look into that because I think it depends on where the funds for that original 500,000 came from. I just know about the 45,000, but I can look into that and get back to you.
I think if there's anybody to push on this, my understanding is that the subcommittee that made that decision did it under the auspices that we would potentially be able to keep the other 36,000 for art in the tunnel later on. So I don't know how that all works, but it would be nice to remind people that was Peter. Is that your recollection?
yeah, it could be, but it wasn't, you know. No. Yeah, I don't know if that was the total intention, but yeah, I don't know, because that the 500,000 was part of the tunnel and the sculpture originally, but because of the cost of everything, it didn't happen. So it's kind of pick one or the other.
Okay, well, we'll track that down. Thank you, Angela.
If I suddenly disappear, Risha, it's because my stalwart little tablet here is telling me whether it's plugged in or not. I'm running out of battery. So if I disappear, you'll know where I went.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll try to catch you up if you do. I hope you don't.
Okay.
Okay, so just before we kind of get into the funding allocation, I thought it would be good to just review the projects that are going on under each subcommittee. So I won't read them out here, but everybody's got something going on. I'll give you a minute to read it. The ones with extra funding associated would be the Cultural Activities Grant Program, the graffiti abatement murals. And there's staff time and other costs built into some of these other ones, but just as far as what's in your pot currently, those are the ones that have been designated. So just as I go on to the next slide, and as you look at this and even consider the funding that we just reviewed, I think the question at hand really is, what is the mechanism for allocating funds, whichever pot of money it comes from? And Chair Bond suggested that the sculpture subcommittee could be used as a case study in, how each subcommittee could consider its own priorities and recommendations. So staff met with the sculpture subcommittee recently to identify the committee's priorities for sculpture acquisition, and where we landed on this is Erin committed a menu of options for the subcommittee to consider that showed, what the project looks like, the name of the sculpture, and then just the different cost elements. So you'll see the costs outlined here are not complete totally. We have some idea for the cost of the sculpture purchase, but not necessarily installation. It really helps hopefully give you all a idea of scope of cost. So if you think back to the unrestricted funding that you have, not including your donations account, it was about $43,000. And there's more than $43,000 of work here. The good news is that I think in the sculpture subcommittee's discussion, and I welcome any of you to jump in if I'm misstating anything or if you have anything to add. They identified a priority as windswept. And it's, I think, the most ready project because we already have that sculpture in hand. It's just the cost of the repair and installation. And some of that is able to be covered by the department's general fund budget, as well as the LPR project construction budget. I know, Erin, do you have anything to add here as far as citing this as an example?
Yeah, I think you covered it, Angela. I mean, I think it's just, I know a little bit further down, I'm not sure if you're getting into that too, but it was kind of just to give an idea, funding is limited and this is just one subcommittee and these are just ideas that they have on the table right now and projects maybe at hand for, as Angela pointed out earlier, the design phases for upcoming capital projects to keep in mind. So there's just a lot to think about as you're kind of designating spending per each subcommittee. So that's kind of just where this little menu option came from.
And just as to build off of that, as an example, would it be possible to have the version of Modern Industrial Era at the Aquatic Center? I'm not saying that's actually where it should go or what the sculpture subcommittee would want to do, but just as an example, is that possible? And then would it be something where potentially that 100,000 would be something that could be applied towards the budget item 2 in this list?
Yes.
Okay, great. Do you have anything else here, Angela?
No, I think the last slide is just a point of discussion. So I'll stop sharing and see if anyone has any thoughts.
So Angela and full city staff, thank you so much for preparing that. Really appreciate you giving us more of the data and for putting that together. Purpose of this was to illustrate that we have these different pots of money. The 43,000 is the fully unrestricted amount, but you can hear some pretty big numbers in there, 100,000 for the aquatic center, 500,000 within a certain radius, but those become more restricted and they're complicated. So want to open this for discussion, but proposal here is that the strategic vision subcommittee help organize like what budget could go where and make suggestions for a budget for each subcommittee, for instance, the sculpture subcommittee for the upcoming year. And then the sculpture subcommittee would have, you know, we use this as a test case where you already have the various budget items that you're putting together and would come up with priorities to fund, and then bring it back to the general commission. We'll line up, you know, what are the available, what's the available budget as the strategic vision subcommittee has laid out will be available for the sculpture this year, and then how does the sculpture subcommittee prioritize that and basically then we can have clear direction on how we want to use our budget and really drive projects forward in a timely manner. So that's the purpose. Does that make sense to people? Do you have questions, concerns? So Lynn, since you're still on, as the chair of the sculpture subcommittee, does this feel like useful and does it feel appropriate?
Well, it's appropriate. I'm not, you know, when it comes to this kind of financing, I'm not sure that this is the commission is the right, we can decide how we want to spend our money. The problem is we're not really sure ever at what our money is. So, I mean, this is a lovely way to spend it, but I'm just not sure that we're the ones to decide that.
Well, we're definitely getting more clarity, and city staff, please jump in if I'm misunderstanding. But what I'm hearing is that, you know, that 43 plus with certain restrictions, the 100,000 and the 500,000 are all buckets that the city is really looking for the commission's guidance on how to spend.
Yes.
On how to spend what?
On how to spend on, for instance, sculptures, additional public art.
Well, I wasn't, you know, the art commission didn't select the Caltrains piece to begin with. So
that was a special case. So yeah, we won't have complete purview. I mean, we had members of the art commission on that subcommittee. We won't have complete purview over all projects, but there are some projects that we've identified. And one thing about having the strategic vision subcommittee kind of take a first pass and a first organization around this is that it is pretty complicated to see what goes where. Yes,
I do agree. I agree.
So rather than trying to do that all together as in a general meeting where we're already taking up quite a bit of time, it's the proposal here is that we have strategic vision subcommittee take the work that Angela's done. Again, thank you very much, and start to kind of sort it out, and then be able to, as a next step, suggest a budget for this year for the sculpture subcommittee, and it'll be for all the subcommittees, but the sculpture subcommittee has a very organized list of tasks, so that's why we're suggesting the sculpture subcommittee as a test case. Zubin, I see your hand up.
Yes. Yeah, a test case we are.
Yeah, and what I like, Risha, basically this is a paradigm shift for this group where we're being empowered and enabled to, we're finding where the money is and we're making decisions on our own. And I think it might be a little scary and fun and exciting at the same time, but that's okay. We're all here to support each other, and this is a good step forward. So.
And also, I just want to recognize it is a little bit of a moving target, right? As we try to factor in like, okay, well, how much, like if it is at the new pool, how much of that is truly from the 100,000 art, or how much of that is from some other construction budget anyway? And so we do try to juggle this, but as long as we know the commission's priorities, we will try to see what we can do to maximize your funds.
I just want to chime in with one other scenario that might help crystallize this for the commission at large. Using the opportunity of the $500,000 that will need to be within the I knew those acronyms and I forget the IQHQ. So that, for example, is $100,000 within $500,000 within a quarter-mile radius or half mile radius. Sorry, it's all coming back to me. And there are many opportunities there, right? A half-mile radius is relatively large area when you look at our downtown area and where that would be. So there might be opportunity for sculpture. There might be opportunity for urban art. And how do we strategically apply that? That's where the strategic vision subcommittee would make that recommendation, at least put it up for discussion for the larger commission to decide. Then, you know, our recommendation is this split with these certain areas in mind. Does that sound okay? And then that's up for discussion. So I think that's all we're saying, is to have a more narrowed in approach than tossing things out and hoping they stick.
Yeah, to have it organized, and it's just because the budget is complicated to bring it into a smaller group and make recommendations. So, Lydia, Sarah, do you want to, any comments or questions?
I don't have any questions.
No questions.
On that note, I'd like to propose that we give this a trial run and see if it works for everybody, and we can certainly open it up to discussion. I suspect, given people's bandwidth, it might be not the next general meeting, but the meeting after. We'll see. We'll see where we get to, but you know, certainly we can continue discussion, but I propose that we give this a trial run and see if it helps us get clarity and move forward.
I have a question. So the 500,000, it still has to be approved by city council, correct? So we would still have to come up with proposals that they would approve of. We just can't go, oh, we're going to put a sculpture on, you know, correct?
Yes, that is correct. I mean, the commission is advisory to the council. So there is that.
No, I understand. I just, you know, we don't have, well, we have some control of the 500,000 through our.
Correct. And, you know, I think just to acknowledge like Lynn's comments, and it looks like we lost her power. She must have run out of juice in her device. And then Zubin's comment about a paradigm shift. I mean, this kind of is where we're at, in an exciting time, even just in my short time with the commission, like to see all this funding coming in. And I guess it's one of the good problems, right? And how many meetings have we spent discussing this topic? Actually, even longer than that before it's really become formal. I know Michael's been asking such questions for a long time as well. So I feel pretty good about this next step that we've accomplished tonight, and happy to answer any other questions if anyone has any.
Thank you for putting all of this information together, Angela.
Yeah, thank you, Angela. Much appreciated.
Awesome. Thank you. I think that wraps up this topic, and we now have new business. Do we have any new business topics?
No new business.
Okay, great. Now we're ready to move to fundraiser subcommittee and Michael's guest, please.
Okay, so we do have an exciting update for which we have brought Marie Patea on board with us because we've been asked and invited to by the opera and by the Friends of Park and Rec to partner on fundraising efforts. So we, as a subcommittee, have made a decision that we are going to partner with Marie and sell the beverages alongside them, which, as we all know, they've sold the beverages as their fundraiser at Concert in the Park for a long time. And so they're being gracious enough to invite us alongside them to share in this opportunity. And we are eager to take them up on that. So I have a few notes that I wanted to mention. First and foremost, the biggest thing that we will need is every commissioner's support in this. It is a 3-day event and it is multiple hours throughout each of those 3 days. There is setup, there is selling, and there is cleanup. Ultimately, each day it is going to be require work from about 3 p.m. to about 9 p.m. So there are different shifts. We, of course, ask for as much flexibility within that. We ask that each commissioner sign up for at least 2 shifts over those 3 days, because there are 11 roles that need to be filled on each of these days. Friends and family are also invited and welcome. Friends and family will have to sign a waiver form in order to participate, but we are much appreciative of any and all support that we can have. And Ursi has sent out that that list. So the link to sign up. So take a look at that. Sign up as soon as you have a moment. Marie, I'm doing a lot of talking, and I know I already introduced you earlier. Is there anything that you would like to say about this opportunity and this partnership?
Just that on behalf of Friends of Parks and Rec, we're looking forward to working with cultural arts commissioners. We don't have we're small but mighty group. Myself, Judy Bush, John Santa, Judy has friends. Oh, Betty Battaglia, y'all probably know. Eddie Flores, Sean Garoni. So we're kind of all hands on deck, willing, wanting to help. Plus, we have other volunteers that will help and are looking forward to it as well. So it's just fun. Look, it's going to be great. We'll need people that like to be cashiers. That's always the issue. Like, okay, who likes to do the money and is good with math and all that jazz. We still need to figure out the square situation. And I'm not sure if that's something that Friends can do. And I know Sharon mentioned, well, Park and Rec has done it in the past. So I don't know, anyways, we'll talk offline on that a little bit more, but we'll get something figured out, because it's a shame having to walk people away when they don't have cash. So we'll try and figure out some sort of square situation. And then storage. I think that's a kind of a big deal, is if we can figure out where to store the beverages so we don't have to, do so much schlepping out of the booth, into the booth, out of the bush, and ice. But the Shahade family did say, yes, they're happy to help and do consignment, which worked out great last time with beer and wine. So
great.
That's
I think we have an awesome opportunity here.
Yes,
and
I think so too.
Just prior to this, our subcommittee met and got confirmation from the city that the storage won't be an issue. So
Great.
They can help us with that.
Wonderful.
One other element that we're working on that we're trying to pull together is ordering merchandise on a short notice. This merchandise will have a logo that we very quickly designed. So it is a temporary logo for cultural arts, but and it's not 100% final at this moment, so I unfortunately don't have it to share with you, but it is using our iconic sculpture of the wind harp alongside the city's name with cultural arts. So very simple and classy logo. So we're hoping to sell merchandise, whether it be a hoodie or a blanket. That is our wish, but we have a month until this event. Again, a reminder, it's February 17th, 18th, and 19th.
Well,
are there any questions?
First of all, Marie, thank you so much for including us, helping us. It is an awesome opportunity, and I'm looking forward to all of us stepping up and signing up and participating and raising funds. And then also, wow, you're adding merchandising on top of that, Michael, above and beyond. But also, thank you to the subcommittee for just kind of grabbing this opportunity.
So on the volunteer, is that, so it's 2 days of 6-hour shift per person? Is that right?
So it's not.
I'm sorry. I thought you said 11. It's going to be 11 positions per day. That would seem to take up everybody.
So there are 11 positions per day. And so again, it's a partnership between Friends and us.
Oh.
But again, like Marie said, they're a very small but mighty group. We are a small and mighty group as well. I don't know if we are of equal size, but we will try to come to this as equal partners. And so we're just asking for right now as many volunteers and as many shifts covered as possible. We'd rather have way too many and be able to say, hey, we don't need you. Go enjoy the opera, or hey, you're off the hook for tonight, but we'll see you tomorrow. That would be a great situation to be in, as opposed to not being able to fully support that booth and losing out on the opportunity because of it.
So, but Michael, if I understood your request correctly, just to, to clarify per Peter's point, the 2 shifts would be 2 3-hour shifts. So it could be 2 consecutive 3-hour shifts on one day, or a 3-hour shift here, a 3-hour shift there. I mean, and I understand your point, the more the merrier, but.
Yeah, I would actually request 1 shift over 2 days. It doesn't need to be the same shift, but trying to get the multiple days covered, I think, is probably a greater challenge than getting a single night covered. And they are short shifts, but I want, we need people to sell at those booths. So I think the most important time frame would be 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. The setup and cleanup, again, I mean, that could be a small and mighty group. And that isn't as great of a need as having people check wristbands and ID, or people check IDs and give wristbands. Cashiers at the front of the bar, people at the back of the bar, making sure that the product is okay, ready and going out. Pourers, water and cup handlers. And then if we have everything else covered, we have the ability to also have 1 person there selling merchandise, or 2 people there. So really, again, our opportunity is only as great as our ability to come to the table and support this as volunteers.
That sounds great.
So the more we can do, the more we can raise.
Gotcha.
And again, Ursi's email has kind of outlined it very clearly. And so refer to that. And then, of course, reach out if you have any other questions. So.
Cool. It's an absolutely fabulous opportunity. Like I said, any other comments or questions for this item? Okay, well, Marie, thank you so much for joining us and for your patience as we work through our other items. And we're really excited to partner with you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Friends as well. And great job, everybody. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Marie.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye. All right. Well, thank you, Michael. And I also heard that you are the new chair of the subcommittee. Yes, temporarily. Yes.
Was that? Yeah. Sorry if that wasn't known already and implied by me speaking so much. Yes.
Great. Thank you so much for stepping up. Awesome. All right. So I believe we're ready for the sculpture subcommittee. Unfortunately, Lynn had technical issues. Michael, I know you're on the sculpture subcommittee, or Lydia, or
Yeah. So we had met with the city as they shared already. We had prioritized windswept. We are still keeping our eye on the other opportunities and trying to be strategic with those. So we have prioritized windswept for the native garden, which is what we had all voted on previously. And there are innate challenges there because the location of the native garden is above the BART area. So it could be feasible still in that location. It just might take a little longer. We have given them direction that we would much rather pursue that location as the right location and take longer than rush through a decision to put it in a different location just for the opening. So it may not be there for the opening of the building in October, but long term, it's the right decision for us to stick with that location. Second, we are looking to be more strategic with these sites and work with the city to put footings in advance appropriate to the site and appropriate to the type of art or sculpture that could be there. So there are a couple locations on that site that they're going to look into seeing if can be done with the landscape plan. Just looking toward the future. And if we have the opportunity to put one of those other sculptures that we've seen in those locations, we can. We've talked about a few other things, but nothing hard, fast, or decided. So I think that would be the report at this time.
great. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. I realized we skipped over the strategic vision subcommittee as well, unless that moved.
We did. Thank you. Yes, that was on me. So yeah, are you also up for giving the strategic vision subcommittee?
Yes.
Okay.
So strategic vision subcommittee, we just found out that the public art master plan schedule has shifted. So in effort to make sure that there's proper time for both the subcommittee and the commission to have proper purview over it and input throughout each stage, the schedule is shifted so that the new delivery of the final plan is expected in July. So I think that's only a shift of either 1 or 2 months, but it's a shift. So I did want to bring that to this meeting as well. If you want specifics, we have specifics of those dates. Just reach out. And for now, that is our report there, if anyone has any questions.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And now I believe the Urban Art Subcommittee is next. I will do that update, which unfortunately is not much of an update. We have definitely had a bit of scheduling issues trying to get a substantial amount of the subcommittee to be able to meet, just schedules. We, on our upcoming agenda for the next meeting when we're able to have it, is that we have asked for a database basically of mural artists, and also working on an RFQ, and that's to address the graffiti abatement, as well as just kind of moving forward, establish an artist list, which will help with other projects as well. Haven't forgotten about the utility box program either, but we're trying to prioritize and do one thing at a time. So that's the update there. So youth arts program.
That is me. I have two quick items. The first is a plug for the Youth Art Show, which is coming up really soon, March 10th and 11th. URSI sent out the docent list. And so like with everything else, really want to encourage everyone to sign up for it. It's on a, I believe, Saturday and a Sunday. Is that right, URSI? Saturday and a Sunday, or is it a Friday and a Saturday?
Friday, Saturday. Friday's time is a little bit different from our adult art shows. It starts at 4 o'clock, 4 to 7:30.
Right. And so again, URSI sent out that list, so it should be in your email inboxes. I think so far we have 3 people on that list. And so we've got about 4 to 5 spaces to still fill up. So please take a look at it, put your name on the list if you have time. And then the other item is just an announcement that the Jack Drago Scholarship is now open. And so the deadline is April 17th, but those flyers have gone out. And I think the one exciting new thing that's been added this year is that submissions can be entered online. So hopefully that'll cast a wider net.
Awesome. That's great news.
Yeah. All right. And that's all I got.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Any questions about that? Okay. Moving right along. We have we talked about the fundraiser subcommittee, and then the next one would be follow-up for the Abundance 2D Art Show. I know there's a virtual show that's out there. URSI, would you like to give any other notes about that?
No, other than it's live, and it'll be up through February 27th. And in addition, there is the live artwork by our awardees. I believe all of them allowed us to keep their pieces, and a couple of other selected pieces in the atrium window of the MSB. So if you want to see the art live and in person, it'll be there up to the 27th as well. Risha, I don't know if you got some statistics related to the art show email I sent you a little earlier. No?
I missed it in my inbox. I'm sorry. Would you like to just share it?
No problem. I can do that. So just a little summary of the numbers with regards to the show. The exhibit featured 50 submissions by 30 artists. That included some of our commissioners and other commissions as well. The Youth Art Commission participant, the Equity Commission as well. And then our judge also had some work featured in the exhibit. The entries were judged by professional artist Colleen Sullivan. 7 entries were awarded ribbons. 3 cash awards were given. 80 visitors signed the guest book, and 2 of the artist entries were sold. Friday's opening included a music performance by Commissioner Zubin Maharaj. Thank you, Zubin. And as I said, the virtual and physical exhibit will be up through the 27th. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, it felt like a successful show. I appreciate everybody who participated and helped in it. And I also want to say thank you to Peter for connecting me to the judge. It was very last minute, and she was very gracious and sounded like URSI had fun working with her as well. So yeah, yay for a successful show. And thank you also to city staff very much. So we kept you pretty late hanging up the art, and Ursi for keeping us organized and running it. So thank you. Great. And then Performing Arts Subcommittee.
Yeah, hi everyone. So quick few updates. So I met with both Aaron, Ursi, and Carrie 2 weeks ago now, just around the application process and kind of the parameters of what our outreach is, what's current state right now, what we could do in that sense. And we've been slowly getting a trickle of applications coming in. I don't know what the current number is. I'll reach out tomorrow and get that from Carrie. But next week I will set up a meeting with the actual subcommittee and talk with everyone to get their perspective on who we can reach out to more, so that we get a larger influx of applications coming in. The key thing that was actually pretty fun, I learned a lot from the meeting that I had with the group, was that we are actually looking for stuff that is not performance related to some level. Now, again, we're open to it being performance or non-performance related, but some examples that came out were like if someone wants to do calligraphy or bonsai tree trimming, or again, just we don't want to be too specific. But again, just a variety, really, we're kind of open. And the other thing that kind of came out of that was the meeting was that the person doesn't have to be, or the group, whoever, doesn't have to be based in South San Francisco. They could be from anywhere as long as they're doing the performance within South San Francisco. So learning those details in general, we kind of talked about some of the advertising and what's put on the language that's going out there for people to read. So anyway, I'll read, Lydia, I'll reach out to you, and also our subcommittee we'll get together and start talking about how we can outreach more to get a large number of applications coming through.
That's super cool. I like this idea of performing arts could be something that's, a demonstration or a hands-on experience. So very neat. That's very neat.
Yeah. It was, so I just, again, meeting with the Park and Recs folks in person, got a lot of details hammered out. So that was a big key thing. So I'm really grateful for everyone for the help on that. And just help being able to just powwow back and forth and banter and see what is there and what we can work with and what we can now kind of add to our utility belt in making this a success. So more to come.
Fabulous. Okay, great. I believe that closes out our subcommittees, and we are ready for items from commission.
I just have one item. I noticed Ursi had included this in our packet, but I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to it because it is an event produced by my cousin. So it's very near and dear to my heart. Tomorrow, as you may or may not know, is the Day of Remembrance. Actually, it's not tomorrow, it's February 19th. It's the Day of Remembrance, which observes the signing of Executive Order of 9066 in 1942. It's the Japanese internment during World War II, to give you more specificity. And so to honor this, the Yonsei Memory Project has their Day of Remembrance, which is an artist showcase. It's a virtual event and it's happening tomorrow night. So if anyone's interested in checking that out, check the information that Ursi had sent, or you can go to yonseimemoryproject.com, which is spelled YONSEI, memoryproject.com. That's it. Thank you for letting me plug that.
Thank you, Michael. Items from staff, please.
Thanks. I will go ahead and kick us off for that. So the first thing we have is just upcoming events. Again, that went out with Ursi's email yesterday with all of our important signups for all our volunteer shows and the opera, but also there was upcoming events, including the Abundance virtual show and then the youth art show coming up. There's information on that. The opera, of course, and the cultural activities grant. There's a little bit of information on that. And then our other Park and Rec event to put on your calendars is the Easter Bunny photo hop. If any of you guys are interested, that's on April 1st. So that kind of rounds out the upcoming events in the future here. And item number 2 for staff that we have listed there is our in-person meetings for the Cultural Arts Commission. They are scheduled to resume to in-person beginning March, and that's across the boards with commissions for the city currently. And there will be, not too many of you were here when we were meeting in person prior, but they will be held in a change of venue, but municipal service building still, but it will be in the old police training room, which is a little bit bigger than the Betty Weber room that the commission meetings were previously held in. So trying to get adequate space for all of us. So again, that will be returning to in-person beginning March, same time, so 6:30 p.m. And it will be in the police training room, which is when you first come off the atrium to the right, but there's going to be, people will help you guide you and send you on your way and where you need to be. Yes, Zubin.
Is food provided? Just asking, just because it's usually dinner time. So I just asking if we, can we bring our own food, or is there refreshments and stuff provided for the in-person needs?
You could bring your own food, and Ursi, I'm looking to you. I did not really go to in-person meetings either. There may be occasional waters, but for the most part, I believe bring your own food.
Okay. BYOB, got it.
And those are my 2 items. I'm going to pass it over to Ursi now for the next item.
The final item, some of you knew her, but I just want to acknowledge, as you may know, the passing of Charlene Shane Looper on Friday, February 3rd. Shane Looper was a key commission sponsor. She was a member of the Cultural Arts Commission for several years and held the chairmanship as well. At the May 26, 2021 City Council meeting, she received official recognition by the City Council for her 13 years of service advocating for the arts in the city. So I didn't realize it was that long. Very good. She was an active member not only of the Cultural Arts Commission, but also of the South San Francisco Improving Public Places Group. She volunteered hundreds of hours supporting city functions and events. Her artistic expertise was as a recognized master floral designer, and she did contribute it and utilize those talents towards floral design art shows and bonsai art shows over the course of some of the years that she was involved. She contributed to the beautification and the civic landscape improvements throughout the city. She, in truth, was actually the real reason that many years the city was involved in San Mateo County Fair and was award-winning for those presentations, and she was the connection to that. She was an active member notably in the Improving Public Places wreath making workshop, where she and Lynn donated their time to make at least 150 beautiful custom bows to adorn the wreaths at the event. She was honored in 2019 as an outstanding volunteer and presented the Volunteer Citizens Award by the California Parks and Recreation Society District 4. In 2020, she reached her term limit on the Arts Commission, but on request, she generously extended her service to guide us as a chair through the vicissitudes of COVID that we were all experiencing. On a personal note, Shane just astounded me with her capacity to really engage the most orneriest of person. She had a great smile and such an engaging and personality that she would get anyone to help and be involved and participate. And that I thought, to me, that was the greatest impression that I left with in her contribution, and something I will carry with me as to her donation was her charm and her graciousness, besides her multi-talented skills. So it's just a notice for the commission that the city lost an amazing person. We all did. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for that beautiful, testament about Shane. And I'm very sorry for your loss personally, because you knew her very well. And for anybody who did know her, she sounded like she was extraordinary. So thank you. I mean, it's kind of hard to switch gears, but just to move to the correspondence, please. Unless, is that okay?
Yeah, so the correspondence package was sent. I didn't see anything that struck me, but you can all take a look at it. Things are what will be a little bit nice about meeting in person is I can give you up to the minute correspondence, because so many things came in today, so they didn't quite hit the package. So, but yeah, things are moving. There's a lot happening.
Great. Any other items? All right, on that note, less than 3 hours. Thank you all for participation tonight, and coming very well prepared too. So really appreciate it, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Meeting is adjourned.
Good night.
Thank you.
Everyone, have a good night.